Lina MICHELKEVIČЬ, and the title of the presentation is Art Events in Details, How to Historicise Ephemeral. And Lina is from the Institute of Art Research of Vilnius Academy of Arts.
Hello everyone. My short tale today, hopefully short, will be about various lingual forms, verbal forms, that some of contemporary art take in order to, some temporary art projects take in order to survive longer and to become a part of art history. So art history has always relied on reproductions because it was the because reproductions gave access to original artworks, which were not always accessible due to various time, space, and other constraints. And they were always useful both for general public and for professionals, those who actually write an art history, make this art historical narrative. And today, when we have contemporary art, actually the same constraints remain, like time and space constraints, because good exhibitions take place all around the world, in New York, in Berlin, in Paris, or in Vilnius also. So it's not like this that you always can see all things you would like to see. So documentation today is still very important. And, for example, there are even such websites like artviewer.com, which takes as its mission to document and to show to the public various exhibitions taking place in different art centers and different cities and countries. And but when we talk about contemporary art, it's not anymore reproduction, but rather documentation, which is the keyword. And documentation becomes very much important. And what is my statement here? That for many art projects, verbal or lingual documentation becomes more and more crucial in compared to visual documenting. And here I have etymology of the word document, and you see that it also has this meaning from Old French, like lesson or written evidence, and evidence again. So it also has a strong relation to verbal, linguistic, and written traces. And for many contemporary art projects that are long time, that last even for several years, and they are based on processes and on collecting, analyzing material, initiating and observing processes. This language becomes a crucial instrument. It's both inside projects, and it also a way to spread and distribute the project. And this expansion of lingual discourses within visual art fields can be related to more general changes in contemporary production in general, because since all times there was clear division between production and action, and production was always aimed at making a concrete product, and action was always ended up in itself. It didn't aim at creating anything else beside it. So art, visual art, was usually a part of this production field, and action included something like medicine, performing arts, or politics also, as a prime example. And philosopher Paolo Virno argues that contemporary production, however, became more similar to action, with all communication and relations and processes which become so important in comparing to final product. I'm talking about general industries. And the same counts for if we think about contemporary art, because pretty often the process is very important and even more important than the final product. Sometimes there is not at all anything that we would call tangible artwork. And language and speech gains an important role here, because as product is not anymore so important, like communication and various linguistic actions become very much central. And here, philosopher Paolo Virno tells a nice anecdote, like 30 years ago in many factories there were signs posted that commanded silence, men at work. Whoever was at work kept quiet. One began chatting only upon leaving the factory or the office. The principal breakthrough in postmodernity is that it has placed language into the workplace. Today in certain workshops one could well put up signs mirroring those of the past, but declaring, men at work here, talk. The same, I would say, the same counts for much of contemporary art, because visual artists are obliged to become virtuosic speakers, as languages and speech become the most appropriate way to document participatory, collaboratory process and time-based projects. So such projects need some kind of verbal testimony to make last and to be accessible to publics after any concrete project has been finished. And these written or verbal accounts are very important also when we talk about such projects, when an artist refuses to make and to spread any visual documentation. A very known project here is German choreographer and performance artist Tino Zegal, who denounces any visual documentation for his performances to make them even more ephemeral, and telling that they can be experienced all at concrete time and place. However, refusing this visual documentation, he never, or not always, refused to make statements about his work, so the word and tales about them exist. And here you have, for example, the title from the art newspaper, which states audio archive breaks silence on Segal, and it tells a story about one art history MA student who decided to write thesis on Segal and to make archive interviewing performers who have been interpreting his works throughout years. And this article states that curators' interviews with performance could prove a gold mine for scholars skirting the artist's ban on documentation of his work. So we are talking about this audio archive like something that could be very much used for writing art history. And if we talk, like one more title on the same time. I would give Okay. Yeah. Okay. I would give a Lithuanian example relating to this, like a Lithuanian artist Redas Diržys, which is from Alytus town and has organized various time-based events since 1990s, and those events like Alytus Biennials and Alytus Art Strike Biennials have always declared clear leftist attitude and confrontational position towards the established art discourse. So he has many times stated that they avoid to spread visual documentation in order to escape this turning into art products. He say that once said, I believe that our highest achievement was that we left almost nothing that would now belatedly canonize us, turn us into a cultural phenomenon. But I would state that actually they have turned into a cultural phenomenon, and within Lithuanian discourse and within art circles there is such Alytus phenomenon known, and it functions precisely in various verbal forms like tales, gossips, and critical opinions and text within press, or just not public opinions. So it is purely lingual and is distributed like more like rhetorics than any visual material. So verbal discourses created around temporary art projects become a new genre of documentation. So it is not, but it's not a surprise that such projects are presented not only in other exhibitions in visual form, but also in various verbal formats like conferences and symposia. It could be presented in a conference like this here. And subjective experiences and memories are very much important here, and artists are invited to share their experience and their thoughts on their own projects instead of art critics or art historians. So I would name as such type of artists Lithuanian duo Nomet and Gediminas Urbonas, which are rather famous for taking place in various symposia and conferences and giving talks on their projects like Protest Lab or Ruta Remake or River Runs and so on. And in this way, contemporary artist becomes also a researcher of his own work, contributing to art historical narrative. And if we talk about Urbonas projects, important thing is that a possibility to integrate those lingual formats comes also from their projects themselves, because those verbal formats are very much integrated into their projects. They use public discussions, TV broadcasts, articles, and emailing groups like the instruments of making their projects. And one more example, in a catalog of a project behind the white curtain that made the Lithuania's National Pavilion in 2011 in Venice Biennale, one finds an email series between the artist Darius Mikšys and his commissioner Kęstutis Kuizinas. And this is kind of very glossy chat, and it's hard to believe that it was written spontaneous, but anyway, when we read it, we see that one of the important topics of this chat is interaction and communication among project participants. So, and it carries the main statement about the artist the artist itself as communicator par excellence, and it reads, "Hello Darius, I'm glad you've accepted my invitation to talk. You're a great conversation partner who knows how to listen, and I know you have to communicate a lot in the framework of this project. I'm amazed by your ability to process such a stream of dialogues, polylogues, and possibly monologues. Few of the artists I know could cope with such dense communication that's inevitable in a project like this." So this kind of unavoidable and nearly compulsory verbal communication is not only a tool of an artist project, which he or she uses to realize his ideas, but it also becomes kind of a product, an artwork, which has to be preserved in catalogs and articles and audio and video recording of public presentations or conferences and so on, long after the project as such has ended. And the last question in this presentation is the question of who has the right and who is spreading such experiences and memories, because we are actually talking mostly about participatory projects, which include much more participants than the artist itself. So here's an example of an artist book by Artūras Raila. The name of the book, the title of the book was Roll Over Museum, and originally it was made up of speechless photo documentations, pure visual material of his various projects, alternately with empty pages, like between every project there were some empty pages left. And one book exemplar, which the artist himself owns, was filled with memories and sketches and schemes and poetry and explanations by participants of every project. Like here you see some statement, and here also some shopping list for making up a car which was used in one of his projects, which was called actually the same like the book Roll Over Museum. So those memories they actually become an artwork when such kind of book is exhibited in exhibition in an art center. But like other exemplars, they circulate without any memories, with empty pages, only this one, like original, unique book has integrate those memories and appropriate them in this way. So for to end up my tale, we come back to Tino Sehgal and to that audio archive made up of his interpreter's memories. There's a statement by one of the interpreters who feels a bit embarrassed, disturbed by the fact that he is now speaking about what he was doing for Tino Sehgal because of this ban, because of his refuse to spread the visual documentation. So he's saying, as I'm describing my experience of Tino Sehgal's work to you right now, I find myself wondering if I'm even allowed to. I don't know. There were no photos or videos allowed, but am I still documenting it by talking about it? And his final statement is, well, it's my experience after all. The artwork is Sehgal's, but I own my own experience. If he owned my experience, that would actually bother me. So this is, I want to take this also as my final statement, also maybe an open question to discuss after this panel. Thank you.